Jennifer. I'm a Park Ranger here at Andersonville, and I have the pleasure of introducing Gary Morgan to you all. As I said earlier, but I'll mention it again, we are projecting this talk throughout the museum. So if you are in the museum, you will be able to hear the whole entire talk that we have here tonight. Now, after this program, we do have another program out on the historic prison site. We will be waiting to guide you all out there. So this should end around 7:55, and that other program starts at 8. So we will actually be walking you all out to that program out on the prison corner, and that will be about the Plymouth Pilgrims, which is a group of soldiers who were captured at Plymouth, North Carolina, and brought trade and commerce here to Andersonville. Now, I'm here to introduce author and speaker Gary Morgan. Gary is an English and history teacher at Western Massachusetts High School. 3 years ago, she discovered Civil War sailor Frederick Augustus James, who's the only known sailor to keep a diary at Andersonville. Although he wrote in his diary every day until just before he died, he left a blank in his diary, which is the blank of the names of the raiders. So now Gary is left to fill in this 150-year-old blank. So Gary discovered that there were 7 possible names, and then it led down to the rabbit hole because we only have 6 bodies. So 7 possible names, 6 bodies for the raiders. So what started as a magazine article intended to definitely identify the 6 men hanged exploded into a full-fledged book manuscript that seeks to answer the questions of who those raiders were, what they did, and why. And just yesterday, what's the name of the company? Stockpole Publishing, yay, offered to publish Gary's book. So we have a publication date of fall of 2019 or spring 2020. So tonight is actually the first time Gary will publicly present her findings. And she's a 2017 recipient of a Friends of Andersonville Prisoner of War grant, which helped fund this research. So we had actually met before, and she came down and researched this topic, and so we're so excited. I'm actually really excited, because we've been discussing this for almost a year now, to hear what she's found in that research. So without further ado, if you would give me a hand for Gary Morgan.
Okay, first off, I have to thank everybody that's affiliated with this place because this talk wouldn't be what it is without them. When my high school students heard that I was coming, one of them looked at me and he said, "Miss, you need a theme song for when you take that stage in Georgia, and I know just what it should be." And I'm like, oh my goodness. The dude looks like a lady. All right, let's go. Okay, so this is Fred James's diary, and you can see there's a great big blank there where the names of the raiders are going to be. Fred's going to come back in the story in a little while, but I just wanted you to see that there is definitely a blank there. All right. Before I can teach you about the raiders, I have to kind of get you to forget everything that you think you already know about it. As soon as I can get the slide to change. There we go. As we said, there are 6 graves. There are 7 potential names. The 2 on the far right, W. Rickson and A. Munn, are supposed to be sailors, except there was never a sailor by either name in the Union Army, or Union Navy. So right there we have 2 probably not correct identifications. Okay, but before we can talk about that. Yeah, the front one. Okay, first a word about sources. Okay. Some of the more famous sources are John Ransom and John McElroy. John Ransom in his book claims that the hanging took place on the 12th. It actually happened on the 11th. He claimed 2 of the raiders were sailors named Rickson and Munn, which is the names on the grave. These names don't appear until after the war. No man by either name was ever in the Navy. He said the hangings happened around 11 a.m. It actually happened around 5 p.m. He said that the raiders Sarsfield of the 140th New York studied law, fought for 3 years, was wounded in action, and was promoted to lieutenant prior to his capture. Actually, Sarsfield was a shoemaker who'd been with the 144th New York for 7 months before he was captured. There's no record that he was ever wounded, no record statement he was surprised when he died. He said that Curtis told him to hurry along the execution, which outskirts. If you remember, the story is the one who tried to run away at the last minute, so it seems really unlikely he would have said, hurry up. And he said that Munn claimed to be a poor Irish lad. In fact, he was 22 years old and had been at sea for at least 4 years. He had to be 3 years to be classified as a seaman, and then he'd been another year in the Canadian military. So Ransom really can't be trusted. Trust me, by the end of the night, I will have mastered this. Hey. All right. Trying to get to the one that says, wait, you can't trust John McElroy. Hey! Okay. John McElroy is probably the most famous account of the Raiders. He says that he was one of the 16th Illinois Cavalry, and that he was one of the guys that actually stood around the gallows while the Raiders were being hanged. McElroy is the one, whenever I would contact somebody for information, they would say, well, according to John McElroy, and he tells an awesome story, but he was writing 15 years after he left, and so things that he remembers, like dialogue, really are kind of questionable. He says that he and the regulators acted without any rebel assistance at all, and that's totally not true. There were at least 2 general orders from the prison officials authorizing first the trial and then the execution. He invents a battle royal between the regulators and the Raiders that probably never happened. He said there were 20,000 people watching. It was desperate. Not a single person mentioned it in their diary, which makes it kind of questionable. When the Raiders came in to be executed, Henry Wirtz, the prison commandant, escorted them in, and he made a little speech and then turned around and left. And the speech generally goes something like, here are the prisoners, I'm turning them over to you as good as I got them. God have mercy on them and on you. And then he left. McElroy inserts a sentence in there. He says that Wirtz says, I have had nothing to do with it in the gallows speech. A lot of people start repeating this sentence when they tell about Wirtz's speech, but it doesn't appear at all in the 15 years before McElroy tells the story. He says that when Curtis tried to make a break to get away from the gallows, that he could hear Wirtz running down from the Star Fort, screaming at the guards to fire at the prisoners because he thought they were going to try and escape. It's 373 paces from the gallows site to the Star Fort. There's a 17-foot fence around it. When Curtis runs off, McElroy says, I was afraid to yell to my men to stop because they wouldn't hear me anyway. So how he managed to hear Wirtz allegedly screaming at guards to fire doesn't make sense, and it doesn't add up. He has a story where Curtis and the Raiders try to assassinate Leroy Key, who bluffs them off with an empty pistol. Leroy Key tells the same story, except that there's no pistol involved, and as soon as he says that he's not after the Irish, they shake his hand and let him go. I'm not sure I believe that one either, but the 2 stories should have matched better than that. When he tells the story of the Raiders, he says 500 Raiders and 3 murders a night. That doesn't hold up. Most of the prisoners said between 80 and 120 in their diaries. 200 is the highest outside of McElroy. And 3 murders a night, I went through every death register entry from the time that the Raiders started really acting up when the Plymouth Pilgrims came until they were arrested. There are no murders, no obvious murders anyway. And he says that Dick Allen and Pete Donnelly wiped the froth from Delaney's dead lips and swore vengeance at the foot of the gallows. Allen was actually wearing a ball and chain at the time. You can't find any record of Pete Donnelly outside of McElroy. And if you just watched your buddies be hanged, you're surrounded by 26,000 angry people. Are you really going to be dumb enough to wipe the froth off the lips and swear vengeance? That didn't make sense. So let go of everything that you believe about McElroy and Here I go. I'm good until I have to change the slide. The good news is we have a slide. Before we started, we couldn't get it to work at all.
I can like change it with you.
That would be good. I was threatening to do interpretive dance to go along with it. All right, so next one up. Yay! All right. So the sources I used, I tried not to use any memoirs written past 1870. I figured 5 years was enough. After that, people's memories got better. I used prisoners' diaries as much as I could. Memoirs within 5 years, McElroy. Regimental histories for the regiments that these guys were with. Compiled military service records for each of the Raiders. And the thing that really kind of blew my mind, the transcript of the Raiders' trial that was published on August 20th, 1865, Sunday Mercury. We'll get to that next. Yeah, Jennifer. Okay. So, how do we know that the transcript is authentic? It was in a newspaper in 1865 during the Works trial. There is a copy of it in the appendix of the book Ghosts and Shadows of Andersonville. It was found by an archivist at the National Archives named Mike Musick. And in Ghosts and Shadows, it just kind of appears, but it's not really authenticated. So I set about trying to prove or disprove that it was what it said it was. And what I found was that the court reporter, according to this article, was a guy named Edward Wellington Boat. Edward Wellington Boat happened to be a reporter for, guess which newspaper, the Sunday Mercury. He was prisoner of war, he was a reporter, he knew how to take shorthand, so he was able to keep writing very quickly as they were speaking. And he's also very sympathetic to Wirtz. He ended up testifying at his trial. In the beginning of the article, he says, please don't rush to judgment on this guy. And so it looks like he may have been, the person who wrote it. Names of the people mentioned in the article, the court officials, the lawyers, the accused, victims, and witnesses, for the most part, you can confirm that they were actually people here. And these weren't famous people. These were, guys from Illinois, guys from Ohio, guys from New York. It was a really wide array, which that made me think, okay, that's promising. Conviction on the days in which the article says they occur are corroborated by prisoners' diaries. The first day, according to this, one of the Raiders, Sarsfield, was convicted. That's confirmed by another prisoner's diary. The second day, 3 guys were convicted, also confirmed by a different diary. There are details in the article, like Sarsfield saying he was going to cut out Dowd's heart. Dowd was the most famous victim. He was the one that they said the Raiders went after him, and they beat him so bad that his Wirtz took one look at him and ordered the rest of the Raiders. The sentence that he would cut, the threat that he would cut out Dowd's heart appears in Eugene Forbes' diary and also in this article. So that matches up. The article says that one of the Raiders, another Raider other than Mosby, was using an alias. We'll get back to that, but yeah, that turns out to be the case. He gives testimony for a prisoner named Friend that's roughly parallel to John McElroy's account, except that in the article, Friend is slashed across the face, including McElroy, they were trying to slit his throat. Close enough. And he correctly identifies Dowd, who was the prisoner that I just mentioned, who was badly beaten. And that was kind of a deal clincher for me because nobody really knew who this guy was. And there's somebody who claims to be Dowd, and that's not who it is. Okay. We'll get back to that.